Welcome to the Greatness Garage Podcast, the place where small businesses get big answers. I'm your host, Brad Borkhuis, founder of Epitome Coaching and Consulting, and this is the Greatness Garage. Welcome back, Greatness Garagers. We're so excited to have you for another great episode. Mike Goodfriend here is here to just enrich our lives and give us a ton of insight. Mike, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thanks, Brad. It's great to be here, and I might have overdressed for the garage, so
Right?
hopefully
We
I'm
can get
okay.
grease on anything, right?
That's right. That's right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Mike, tell the garage a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I started my consulting firm, gosh, over 30 years ago. Just a quick background, started my career with PwC, actually as a financial auditor, CPA, and then moved into human resources after that before starting my consulting firm. One of the things that applies today is I became certified in the Birkman Method back in the 1980s while I was still at the firm. And that was it was something that really resonated with me, probably because it told me something about myself, and I wanted to share the gifts of this approach with others. So I started my own firm, and that was all I did was the Birkman to start out with. But it's evolved. I've evolved into what I would call an executive coach and team builder. The Birkman is still part of my practice and a big part of my practice in terms of driving change, but there's a lot of other consulting within that executive coaching and team development that I do. I'm a couple of things that I want to share, hopefully, during this podcast is I developed a program called Leveraging Unconventional Strengths so that we can really, as leaders and teams, really take the benefits of people who have different personality traits and bring them into the program. I've also written a book called Breakthrough Time, and I can share a little bit about that as we go. And finally, I am Brad, I'm also a non-professional baseball player. And I am not currently being scouted by any professional basable team.
So you are a complete free agent on that and
That's
available
right.
to work, right?
I'm available. Just wait. I'm waiting. My phone is right here in case anyone calls.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think one of the things just for me, in just true impressiveness is 30 years in consulting and coaching. Like there's a lot of energy now in people coming into coaching and a lot of people in and out in the last 10 years, right, of doing this stuff. But to have stayed the path and understood your calling for 30 years, that's amazing. I mean, for people to hear that 30 years anymore is six work lifetimes,
That's right. That's right. Well, I don't even think certified coaches had been in existence for
Yeah.
more than a year or two at that point. So
Wow.
pretty
A true pioneer
interesting.
in that space. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
you could say that. You could say that. So,
I love it. So
yeah.
we're going to jump into the first segment. The first
Yeah.
segment is I wish I would have. I wish I would have done more of this. I wish I would have done less of this. I wish I wouldn't have done this. I wish I would have done this. So I wish I would have. Mike, take it away.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's a good one. I think I've got a good one, at least for me.
I love it.
So I became Birkman certified, like I mentioned. It was 1986. So as a when I got in my own business, I helped start what was called a Birkman user group, which is basically a group of certified Birkman consultants, and we're just trading information and helping each other out to help our clients go deeper with the use of the method. Well, I noticed in some of these user group meetings that some of the consultants would actually joke about some characteristics, not knowing my characteristics that I had that the general
Interesting.
population didn't have. So in
Yeah.
other words, I had some more unique strengths. And
Yeah.
the joking, well, for instance, there were a couple of traits that I could share. One is I'm more diplomatic and tactful than the average person who is more direct and straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also worry more about consequences and impacts than the average person who, tends to want to try to make decisions as quickly as possible without overthinking it. Well, the joking tended to reinforce my own life story about
Mm.
feeling like I'll call it I wasn't good enough, or
Yeah.
you would be
Yeah.
more effective in this world if you could just, tell it like it is and, make decisions
Not be
faster.
you.
Yeah, not be
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
I can
yeah.
hear that. Yeah.
So, and it was strange in a way because here are these consultants who are trying to help people be themselves, yet
Yeah.
privately they had some of the same biases as everyone else. But it did
Yeah.
reinforce my, well, lack of confidence, you would say. So, this as the story goes, you remember COVID, just like everyone on this podcast remembers
Yeah.
COVID,
Yeah.
and there was a fight for survival, and it was no
Hmm.
different as an executive coach. So it I had been working with a mentor in the Birkman Method, for a little while, and together we came up with this idea to provide a virtual workshop. And back then, you remember the virtual didn't really happen as
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we came up with this workshop called Leveraging Unconventional Strengths, and we offered it to other Birkman consultants. And we did this workshop, and the idea was to help people with unconventional behaviors leverage their strengths
Yeah.
and le help the conventional people
Understand.
leverage the unconventional. Okay.
That's huge. Like I could see like it's amazing because you say that too. I have a couple clients who are their personality type is in like the less than 1%, and they feel so ostracized by the dynamics of who they are because other things don't make sense to them, and the things they say nobody else kind of gets or sees in the same lens. But wow, I amazing.
Yeah, and this is the lesson that I learned was that um, people, the society reinforces that feeling of I'm not good enough just
Hmm.
because it's different. Not and they're not
Yep.
intentionally doing it. They're oftentimes trying to help. Say, well, yeah, you just don't worry as much and just make the decision.
Well, I
And
don't have a problem with doing that, right? Yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And it's not that that's bad advice because it can be good. It's
yeah.
just that they're the person like me wasn't really allowing my strengths to come out, and so the process really helped me. Just like a lot of us, when we teach it, we
Hmm.
sometimes helps us just as much as it
Yeah.
helps those. So it helped make me more proud by being able to teach it of the value that those unconventional strengths bring. And that's helped. In essence, I changed my mindset about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I learned a big lesson because that was in many ways holding me back in terms of what I felt my true potential was. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And so when did you originally kind of so that showed up in COVID. So for years you were operating under this kind of stress, right?
Yeah.
Of feeling, yeah, it's well, and it's interesting too how just as you're saying it that those that have when we've read the ocean, red ocean, blue ocean, right? A red
Yeah.
sea, right? And understanding that you have those blue sea skills, and it's tough because society they're not the norm, and nobody wants to feel odd, so they always make if it's not me, it must be odd or it must be right,
Right.
different, and so
Right.
they push it down versus saying, oh my gosh. that's the key that unlocks all of the other things that I do. So yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I don't believe it's intentional that
No, no.
people do that. It's just that they're used to getting reinforced. Conventional
Yeah.
people are used to getting reinforced that that's the proper way of doing things because guess what? It kind of is. It's more acceptable or accepted.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So I think that and it's funny because the timing was actually quite good, Brad, because nowadays especially living in an AI world, part of the value that a leader, that's the distinctive value of a leader in the future or really the present. One of those characteristics is to be able to drive innovation and
Mm-hmm.
leverage different types of thinking. So this really helped me as a business owner, as well as, this is part of my arsenal, one of the
Yeah.
tools in my arsenal.
Yeah, isn't it funny that, and not only that too, I think there's there's such a golden gem in having an alternative or a anti-personality or like that sees it so differently because you're able to support people in a way that nobody reflected back to them in a way that they've ever seen before, that they can never be seen in the way that you're able to see someone. I bet you that's just when somebody hits it to them, it's just got to be really cool, huh?
It is. It absolutely is. And because like, well, quick story. There was a individual that I worked with. The Birkman has 9 behavioral
Hmm.
characteristics. And this individual, of those 9 characteristics, 8 were considered unconventional.
Wow.
Okay. And she's actually quite effective
Hmm.
in the work that she does. But it was, her view of herself wasn't that way. So it really being able to capture that. And what I want to say is that I experienced this over the years,
Hmm.
that there are certain conventional people that really do know how to leverage and want to leverage different views,
Yep.
and others don't. So this
Yep.
isn't a right or wrong, good or bad. It's just that
Yep.
some people are better at leveraging differences than others.
Well, and one thing I love that you said, so that person had 8 that were unconventional and was very effective in the role that they did. And I think this comes in for those, listening here. This is the seat on the bus equation that we're trying to find. Like these people,
Mm.
like it, underlying it, they're a good culture fit or a values fit. And then where does that skill set and where does them being happy fit on the bus? And it might be that your entire organization's very outgoing or very, kind of that type A or whatever, and
Yeah.
they're not going to be in that. So that might not fit the organization. But typically, inside an organization, we really just have to see what skills and personality set really fits the person and allows them to be successful, right?
What fits that culture? I agree with you completely. And
So
if we don't have something, we have to ask ourselves, do we need to manufacture it? If
yeah.
so, I've had clients actually assign the unconventional characteristic. Like one was a merger integration planning meeting, and they were missing some important characteristics they felt like were in terms of being unconventional in
Yeah.
the group. So they actually assigned somebody in the group to play that role, almost the devil's advocate
Very
role.
cool.
Yeah,
What a
yeah.
great insight idea. Well, and here's the thing. What I love about this is that we're all like, today you got to be unconventional, you got to be disruptor, but nobody wants to be unconventional and be in the ostracized space of it, right?
Right. And being disruptive is totally in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah,
Uh,
great point. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Are you obnoxious disrupting or are you silent, quiet?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and some people they make incremental, changes or improvements that that's what they call disruptive,
Yeah.
when someone else that's just a minor improvement because they want to, break the whole thing.
Very interesting. Wow. That is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you see this, what do you think is the biggest impedance for people to really appreciate the unconventional in their organization?
Well, quite often it has to do with the culture of the organization. It shouldn't be a big
Yeah.
surprise because um, cult, you know, cultures oftentimes have these historical anchors,
Hmm.
and trying to get people to change it was difficult for me to change my mindset, and I had the tools to do it,
Yeah.
and the experience. I mean, I was coaching people to leverage it. I was always coaching them to be who they were, but
Yeah.
I really wasn't, using that
Being who you
medicine for
were.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
It is funny. There's times where you're sharing with a client and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to write this one down for
yeah,
myself.
for
Yeah.
myself. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. So yeah, that is part of the challenge, but
Yeah.
oftentimes you know this as a coach, and especially in somebody who drives, business results. It oftentimes you have opportunities, and in
Mm-hmm.
those
Hmm.
opportunities, the real person comes out.
Yep.
And one of the other ones I am going to talk a little bit about a process that I use, and you'll kind of see the connection at that point where it's a way for the unconventional to, let themselves come out.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it is, and that's, I think you said it was like it's by we have a culture that exists. And a lot of times, when people have to understand culture always exists. Whether it was intentionally created or not, it's there. There is a culture there. And whether that culture is accepting or not, whether that culture is seeking for change or not, whether the comfort is, we create that. And so when you are kind of pointing into these, like we're going, it's your culture. Like you guys don't want the unconventional. You have nothing in your culture, let's say, that is saying we love the unconventional. How do you get
Mhm.
them to step into embracing the unconventional?
Well, part of culture change, and the clients I work with there really is how do we change the belief system in the
Hmm.
organization? So how do we first understand the beliefs and the
Yeah.
patterns that exist? And then oftentimes, leveraging unconventional strengths then becomes a bit more of a lever on how we change that, especially if, which is a little more typical of companies that are kind of set in their ways because they've been doing it for a long time.
Yep.
How is it that, the unconventional strengths become a lever to change a belief about
Hmm.
driving more disruptive or breakthrough change?
Very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's just it's that chance for people to, and again, and kudos to the organizations that are willing to take that reflection and go, all right, we're going to change our charted course, and we're going to realize that and see that there has to be something different being existing there, because that's scary. I mean, that's what, like you said too. The reason that they kind of pointed out that other one is because it wasn't them and it was different, and different equals scary and change and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that is change is very scary, even and mostly scary at a subconscious level.
Hmm.
And so there are oftentimes leaders who come in that are going to drive that, they want to drive that culture change, but trying to get to that point where people are willing to embrace and drive it is
Hmm.
as you know, it's much more challenging than it
Yeah,
sounds like.
and
Yeah.
that what that brought up for me though was a really so interesting. So when I was young, I had a business that I took over, a seven large loss, had to turn the business around, and I approached change with aggressive over the topness, like unblinded, just blinded driving that we're going, and it's interesting that was my way, that my my fears, my egos, my way addressed the discomfort was to basically be ignorant to it, right? And just say, hey, we're going here, we're driving 1,000,000 miles an hour, damned be everything else. We're going, you're either on board or you're not.
Yeah.
And so how do you see that people navigate change unhealthily? And I'm asking it for this reason that some people out there might see going, well, that's how I do, like, oh, that's what's happening and that's why I do it. Where have you seen that people navigate change in a way, like I mentioned myself, that is unhealthy
Yeah.
or just not good for the organization? Ultimate good change. Yeah.
Yeah, well, oftentimes they are dealing with both their own personality and value set, and usually some fears about that. For instance, so one of the tools, the Birkman tools that goes beyond personality is called the Birkman Mindset Report.
Hmm.
And one of the I've been kind of, this is a good example where I've been on the cutting edge of that, and uh, and no one and a lot of consultants have been slow to adopt because they fear they're used to
Hmm.
the way they go about using we'll call it the Berkman, personality report. They call it the signature
Yep.
report. Okay. And so oftentimes there's a real subconscious perspective and mindset at play here. One of those, and the Berkman Mindset Report gets at how similar I think I am compared to other people, or how different that I am. So if I see myself as similar in an unhealthy way, if you guess in terms of driving change,
Yeah.
is I'm going to be, you're going to have to make a really good case for me to
Mhm.
want to drive change in a way that I'm not either used to or that I haven't already bought into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that as I described that, but it also can have negative effects of hearing other people out and really kind of getting buy-in.
Well,
Um,
and it points to an entrenchment that you might have because, and I think a lot of times it comes by naturally. I've tried it before and it worked, and so that just reinforced that entrenchment into this, and it's worked. It's gotten me this far, right? We've heard that one, and so my way has
sure.
gotten me this far. Yeah, interesting.
Yep. Which doesn't apply as much these days,
To
right?
change. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yep. Yep. So
Very cool.
that's my, that was a, a real, as I look in hindsight,
Yeah.
that was a big turning point for me.
That's crazy cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our next segment that we love, I love it one. It's you're not gonna believe this. It's a story that just, the stuff that happens in life and business that knocks our socks off. And I'm so excited to hear what you've got, Mike. Man,
Okay. I
take it
got
away.
one.
I love it. Here we go.
I got one. So, it was 1998, and I was doing some work for an oil and gas company, probably mostly facilitation then. And, I had worked one-on-one with people, but never on what I would call an extended coaching assignment, because people didn't really ask for coaching. They would just say,
Yeah.
can you help somebody? So I had the HR person that I was working with. She asked me, can you work with this geoscientist on a more extended basis? And in essence, that was my first coaching assignment. He was a intellectual genius in the geoscientific field. He was helping to map reservoirs in the Gulf of Mexico,
Mhm.
which at the time was um, not as plentiful as or developed as it is today. I
Right.
mean, they were out there, but and he developed some methods that were far and above, better
Huh.
than what was out there. However, he he would call people demeaning names, and uh, the reason, sorry, the reason they wanted me to work with them was
Yeah.
because there were other people in his role around the world, and they wanted him to be able to teach those other people.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
because if they weren't up to
Personality.
his, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I can hear his personality. Yeah, it's coming.
Yes, yeah. And if they didn't measure up to
Hmm.
his, that's when he would start calling them names, and he was very demeaning to these people. So yeah, and part of a coaching program, you get feedback. I interviewed a number of stakeholders, a couple of direct reports, but mostly peers or superiors. And I did, except for the direct reports, I did something that I don't do today. Well, I've done it, but it's not as often as I did back then. Was I would bring the client into the interview so they could
Mm.
hear it firsthand. And so what would happen, Brad, is after the interview, we would go back to his office and he would spout all the demeaning names about this person and now they did this, and it was, and he disagreed with everything. And that's part of the process. He had during the meeting, he didn't do that. It was, he would wait till we would talk
Professionalism.
one-on-one.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And so then after all the interviews, we got together to talk about the themes from the interviews. And I said, okay, so let's, maybe we should talk, what were some common things that came out of the interviews? And he goes, well, before we do that, I want to ask you a question. He said, do you think I should see a therapist? And, not being very experienced at this, I knew what to do. I said,
Yeah.
I don't know. Why do you ask?
Yeah. Let's step around that one, right?
Yeah, let's step around. Let's see what, let me
Yeah.
see
What do you?
why. And he goes, well, as much as I didn't like what I heard, as I thought about it, it sounds a lot like what my first wife used to tell me. And I don't want the same thing to happen with my current wife.
Wow.
Yeah. And wow, that was such a teaching moment for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it told me that um, he had a motivator and it
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
nothing to
Yeah.
do with work.
Yeah.
And I tell you, this guy, he made a remarkable turnaround. He became very motivated to learn about,
Wow.
facilitation skills
Yeah.
and how to get people to buy in, and how, he could play a role in educating others. And that it just taught me a lot that the personal motivator is the accelerator
Yep. Yep.
for
Yep.
change. And again, I this that this
Oh.
is that was I was lucky that I learned it on the first go round. That's
Mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
I see it. So yeah, that was a real moment for me for sure.
Well, and I can imagine like there's a part of me right now just I'm getting chills because I'm sitting in his seat, a
Okay.
very intelligent, a very perspective, like analytical,
Yeah.
and is seeing these stars come together. And really what you provided him was a case studies and documented information that he was able to process in his very analytical and very smart brain, that he was able to start sitting here going, oh my God. Oh my God. And like you said, I can imagine as he watched him more and more, the fear that overcame him, and then that almost that losing of that love that he currently has. Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
gosh, that's
that scared
what
him.
an
It's
experience.
I think
Yeah.
it scared him. I forgot a little detail that really paints the picture after that session, and that then he had to kind of do a strengths and weaknesses, almost like a personal SWOT.
Yep.
And when he was talking about his weaknesses, and he said, I I guess I have a capacity to intimidate people, kind of like an intellectual bully. And
Wow.
for him to be able to say that was that showed that he was really being more vulnerable and coming to grips with who who he actually was,
Yeah.
not what he, thought he could be.
Yeah, and how he was being portrayed and how he landed with others. I think, and what's really important for everybody to hear is we're hearing this, we're like, of course he was, right? And
Yeah.
I will tell you the one thing that gave me the best perspective on that one time is I went to there's this thing called Landmark. And if anybody's on it,
Okay.
it's a coaching, and they do it in a
Oh yeah.
mass room, like there's 100 people, right?
Yeah.
And it was funny, and I had a buddy of mine who's like, "You do coaching, you should do this thing," and I had never heard of it, and so I said, "Oh, I'll do it, whatever." So we go out and we do this, and we're in this room like I said, 100 people, and they would have somebody stand up and they would do live coaching right there. And it was so almost humorous to me to watch this person that would be like, just like that, they were pointing to them, and the whole room's like, it's right there, and they couldn't see it themselves. And
Yeah.
the value of being able to step outside yourself and seeing your own perspective is so valuable, but so difficult. That the things that we see, even us as coaches, right? We
Yep.
bang our head into the same things that we tell our clients, don't bang your head into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we can't see ourselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we are part of the interaction. It's like you might coach somebody differently than me, and
Yep.
that may connect better, may not.
Yep.
But we're bringing ourselves into the discussion. Yeah, we hope to be unbiased and objective
Yep.
in that conversation, but we're still influencing it by who we are and our
Yep.
experiences.
Yeah, you bring all of those, and they say, you bring all your experience into this, good and bad, right? And part of it, you
Yeah,
use the bad to help the others, but also at the same
yeah,
time, the bad things that show up, and funny how when somebody, maybe a client or something, triggers like something, and you're like going, oh, I do not like that, whatever that was, I do not, that showed up for me, so,
yeah, yeah, for
wow,
sure. Yeah, so that was a quite a, and I do like to tell this story to but to clients as well as in situations like this,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it really reinforces how important it is to really get it. In fact, you have a couple more minutes on this one.
mm-hmm,
So
absolutely.
here's another story because it's related, and it may not seem like that, but I'll so this
You'll tie it, Devin. I like
yeah,
it.
I'll tie it together. Yeah. So, 'cause everything has a connection to baseball for me.
Mm-hmm.
The my son, when he was 7 years old, I read something in a local magazine about a former Houston Astro player that is doing batting lessons. The player's name was Terry Poole. Not everybody may know him, but he was, a well-known Astro in his time.
Yep.
So I took my son there at 7 years old. He was the youngest that he had ever worked with because he worked more with uh,
Mm-hmm.
older ones. And in a couple of years, when he was 7, he wasn't even hitting off of live pitching. And by the time he turned 9, he started facing live pitching. Well, one of the things that a lot of kids do when they start facing live pitching is that that fear of getting hit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they kind of step out, they
Oh.
call it stepping in the bucket.
Yep.
And it's just a instinctive
Yeah,
response.
yeah, try not to get hit. Okay. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, so I called Terry Poole. I said, better come for a lesson. He's stepping out, and maybe you can help him. And I thought, well, we're going to go there. He's going to watch him, and then he's gonna tell him not to step out, and it'll mean more coming from him. He
Yeah.
he watched him. He started stepping out, and then he didn't say anything. And I'm like watching. I'm going, what the heck is he doing? Why
Mm-hmm.
isn't he saying anything? And what he did was he focused on what he should be doing instead of what he shouldn't be doing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't recognize, and as I became more educated about, performance and having to perform and how that fear uh, gets involved here, is again, focusing on the positive motivation
Mhm.
matters way more than trying to stop a negative. So I always
Yeah.
say you can't stop a negative very well, but you sure can run towards a positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a really,
Wow.
great
Yeah.
experience for me. I got to know this sports psychologist after that, and a lot of what I learned from the sports
From
psychologist
that
was
one
basically,
day. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. He basically, Terry Poole lived it, so he knew.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So I wanted to share that.
That's a great, well, and I think that is in so much we're doing, we are even our self-talk to ourselves as business owners, because we're looking at all the things we're not doing or the things our business isn't doing. We're trying to improve the things our business doesn't do well.
Yes,
And, it doesn't mean you ignore it completely, but it should be 75-25. 75% should be on enhancing what do you do well. And
correct.
25% doing your best to fix the things that you can prevent from going wrong, right? And I
Correct.
just, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No,
very
I'm
cool.
totally with you on that.
That's
Yeah,
a great point. Wow.
yeah,
Thank you for that extra share. That was a
yeah.
good one.
Sure.
That was a good one.
Oh,
I like
good,
that.
good.
So
Glad. Yeah.
so the third segment is aligned intentional language. And I love this one. It can be a mantra, it could be a quote, it could be a foundation of language that you use, but it's the intentionalness in the way we speak and the way that kind of carries us through to cognitively understand this is who we are, this is where we are, and this is where we're going. So Mike, what is the language that you've used
Yeah.
to guide you?
Well, I'm gonna make you wait for a second.
I like it.
Okay. Um, so back in 2016, 15, something like that, I uh, I created a leadership development program based on Shark Tank, and it's
Hmm.
called the Teamwork Sharks. I call it the Teamwork Sharks Leadership Challenge. And the idea, there's three phases. One is one-on-one coaching, because if a leader needs to grow, they need to look inward. So in essence, some of what I've described in terms of coaching, somebody getting feedback, learning about their Birkman, coming up with development goals and so forth. That's what happens in that first phase. The second phase is more about group learning, especially around driving change and innovation. And the third phase is the Shark Tank. Third and final phase is kind of Shark Tank style presentation of a cross-functional business opportunity they want to lead inside this
Hmm.
company. And everybody's from the same company.
Yep.
Okay. And so this was something to me because similar to you, I want to drive business results.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to just drive leadership,
Yep.
development. I want to drive leadership development that enhances business performance.
Yep.
So I decided to write a book about this process, and back in 2019, and I decided to call it Breakthrough Time. And I had a lot of trouble coming up with a good title. And the title for me has a lot of meaning. First of all, I'll come back to that. The book is kind of fun. It was a fun one to write
Hmm.
because well, first of all, I started writing it, and I would go up after a long day, go up to my home office and start typing, and I found myself falling asleep writing it. And I thought to myself, if I'm falling asleep writing it, you can imagine the
Yeah.
reader. So I basically scrapped it. I just scrapped it all. And um and I
Just
think
make
I
it, hey,
was
just pitch it as a nighttime book. That's all.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, isn't that, yeah. I'm known for the sedative aspect of my book. Yeah. So I think I was watching one day a rerun of Back to the Future. And I thought I've always been fascinated by the concept of time travel. It's
Mm-hmm.
just there's so much you can do with it creatively. And So it triggered a whole thing for me. So my book is basically about, as it relates to this teamwork sharks. And I had a partner that I worked with on this, is my partner and I were meeting in my office, getting ready for our next assignment. And um, these two people show up, a man and a woman about my age, and in our 50s at the time. And so they introduced themselves as my grandchildren from 2085. So, and they came back to the future or to the present, they wanted to bring me back to their future
Gotcha.
to help them. They wanted the teamwork sharks to help them commercialize a revolutionary business opportunity, which was commercializing time travel. And so there was so much I could play with in this book. So
Yep.
it's obviously a novel, but there are some truths in it,
Yep.
or as well as connection to, to the way I, go about these projects. So I had a great time with it. But the book to me was, that title to me is so important because I believe that now is the time to break through.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
uh, every hour that passes, and we've all done this.
Yeah.
Everybody watching has done this, where you go, I've got this great idea. And then
Hmm.
a year or so later, it
Yep.
comes to pass, and we go, I had that idea. Why didn't I
Yep.
act on it?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also, when it really is urgent that we explore for potential breakthroughs, because
Hmm.
competitors are not standing still,
Exactly.
and
Yep.
inefficiencies, or higher costs, not capturing sales. Those are all things that are happening, um, where there's an opportunity for breakthrough.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now is the time. So that was how I came up with that title, and the importance of having that's the, probably the language that came to mind on this
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Very cool. Yeah,
yeah,
and it's interesting in understanding how that alignment works, and that reminder even for self that says, take action. And I think the thing that what paralyzes a lot of people from the breakthrough is that they think it has to be perfect, right? Versus saying just take a step towards, right? Take a step and then you can reassess and take another step and another step and another step. And, I think that's the thing where, and it's one of the things I really like about AI right now is that it gives you a little bit of nudge into that space where you can kind of espouse an idea into something and give me some, action steps. And it gives you some action steps that you can start following. And then you just got to be in the present and take the chance, and yeah, so.
and then you can come back as you create the path forward around that next step. Then you
Yep.
can, again, use your AI colleague, and that's how I look at it,
Yep.
to help you, um, you know, uh, with where you're at that point,
Yep.
and the next step as well. So yeah, I like that thinking.
I think, and it's interesting how too, as that language, guys, as people are hearing that just too, and keeping like a mantra, like if you turn that into something like a mantra that you live by, the amount, I mean, you hear these numbers like Edison, and I can't remember what the thousands, the number of inventions that he came up with, but it
Mm,
was significant, right? And like,
yeah.
how does some humanly have the kind of time to not just add something to it, but to invent that many things? And part of it is, it was his constant state of being. It was he lived the life of create, think of it and create it. Whatever it is, create it. Whatever it is, create it. And breaking through that right now. It's right now. It's right now. So
Yeah, one of the things that I go to something here, it's something here in Houston, every year, and it's called Pumps and Pipes.
mm,
Um, And what it is, it started, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years ago with the idea that um, three industries, oil and gas, healthcare, and aerospace, they all had pumps and pipes, and in
Hmm.
essence could share lessons about some of the challenges and solutions that might be done in oil and gas that could be used in healthcare.
Wow.
And and what it is, and this is captured in a book called The Innovator's DNA. And Clayton Christensen was one of the authors. A guy named Jeff Dyer and Hal Gregerson were the other authors. That it captures that there are people that are delivery driven leaders, and
Hmm.
there are people who are discovery driven leaders.
Hmm.
Delivery
Hmm.
driven leaders tend to want to associate and use um, solutions that to add to something that's already being done. In essence, to make it more efficient,
Yeah,
more
yeah.
effective, to incrementally expound upon it, where discovery driven leaders like to associate with people that are totally different than them.
Hmm.
And those people want, by doing that, they're looking to connect what they're learning in this
Yeah.
associative thinking to innovate. And I have no idea what Edison was, or if he was more
Right. No, yeah.
discovery driven, but there are people who think that way. Instead of trying to improve something, they're making a connection to come up with something totally different and new.
Just
And
to transcend it, actually, even it's yeah. Well,
yeah,
and you look at that too. The saying, it says I most fear what I don't know, right? That's the short version of it, right? But I mean that part of it, in that the people who are completely thinking differently with you are going to see things through a lens that they might, they see something that you're like, wow, didn't even see that, and what a cool way to kind of to open that. So
and just to kind of wrap things back to the beginning, there it's not like I'm not like the person who has eight of the nine characteristics of unconventional, but I do
mhm.
have a healthy amount of it. Um, I realized for myself that a lot of times I disagree, or I critique certain kind of existing ways of doing things. And I discovered that I wasn't
Oh,
trying to beat it down. I almost acknowledged what exists
yeah.
and either try to add to or come up with a alternative solution. It may not be perceived that way, but
Right.
does that make sense? And
Well, and yeah, and you would see the entire problem in a different way, and that part that you think going, how do they not see this? Like, right,
yeah,
because to you it's probably so clear to see it this way, they must know. But then, like, as your confidence grows, you go, hey, have you seen this? And then that's when immense. I'm sure that's why over 30 years you've created so much value, because you're able to present to people such a breakthrough because you're seeing it so differently than they do. Yeah.
well, yeah, but I will say that I've had to learn
Mm.
this is that just as we talked about in the beginning, I'm also creating fear in the process because
Yeah.
I'm trying to disrupt what somebody knows and
Yeah.
is comfortable with.
Yeah.
And
And may hold
so
dear.
yeah, they hold dear. So breakthroughs, you know, part of the breakthrough, there's going to
Hmm.
likely be a fear.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to be more conscious myself of that, but I also try to teach people that to be a disruptor, you also have to figure out, you know, how to help others become
Yeah.
more conscious of what might be holding them back.
What a beautiful space of navigation. Mike, I want to thank you so much for just for sharing with us your genius and your perspective and your unconventional a way of seeing things. I really appreciate it, and I think we all greatness garages. You got another great one, and this is the stuff that you get a chance to. Um, to see through different lenses, and all these people that go through these things and navigate them. And so, one, as business owners, you're not alone, and two, it's that there's people out there that support you, like Mike, that do great things. So, Mike, thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate you so much. Greatness Garagers, thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next time. Have a good one. Remember, action is what makes this information all worth it. If you need help figuring out what that action is, go to callwithbrad.com and we'll get some clarity and help you figure out what that should be.